In the last week, an Iranian scientist that was the leader of their nuclear program was killed in a bombing and shooting that appears to be a highly coordinated and planned attack to slow or stop the country's future nuclear ambitions. As the rhetoric starts to trend upwards, what will Iran bring to any possible conflict in the Persian Gulf? For starters, this more than likely will not turn into a ground war. We will explain why in further detail later in the video. With that potentially out of the equation, that leaves us with three possible methods of attack or defense. The first is going to be the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, with their naval assets in the Persian Gulf. Iran does not have a large navy compared to the American Navy, but for the region they have a fairly large force, primarily made up of small attack craft. These range from a few frigates and speedboats armed with guns and rocket launchers, called bog hammers, all the way down to the comical-looking jet ski patrols with a two-man crew, one as the driver, the other armed with an RPG-7. As funny as this sounds, this is a real tactic used by the Iranians. These craft more than likely will not be used to attack the US Navy or any other large navy that enters the Persian Gulf in a conflict initially. Their most likely attack would be against merchant shipping in the Gulf and in the Strait of Hormuz. The Persian Gulf is very shallow at many points, and the navigable channels for large ships can be easily blocked if they are damaged or sunk, or hijacked in the waterways. Weapons such as rockets, water mines, lipid mines enable possible boarding parties, and swarm attacks against merchant ships is the most likely course of action. There is history in Iran using this course of action. Read more about it in the book America's First Clash with Iran, The Tanker War, 1987-1988, by Lee Allen Zatarain, on Kindle or in hardcover or paperback on Amazon. Link in the description. The Iranian military may be very confident in their abilities, overtly so in many cases, but they more than likely will not want to engage any warships transiting the Persian Gulf. If they were to attempt this, they would more than likely use shore-based or air-based missiles to attack, especially in areas where the narrow channels limit maneuvering by the target. The Iranians do have a large inventory of anti-ship missiles at their disposal. The majority are indigenously produced copies of Chinese anti-ship missiles such as the C-701, called the Kosar, the C-705, called the Nasser-1, and the C-801 and the C-802, called the Noor by the Iranians. With these, along with their own produced Rad, Qadr, and Khalij Fars missiles, this gives them the ability to cover the width of the Persian Gulf. The Kosar and the Nasser-1 are only useful at ranges of 15 to 30 kilometers. With the width of the Strait of Hormuz at only 39 kilometers, and ships meant to travel specific lanes inside it, this makes ships very easy targets without air defenses. The larger missiles have ranges all the way out to 300 kilometers. The Persian Gulf at its length is some 615 miles or 990 kilometers, and its width varies from a maximum of about 340 kilometers to a minimum of 55 kilometers in the Strait of Hormuz. This gives Iran the ability to target vessels far from their own shores with land-based missiles. This would be the next most likely course of action. While they do have air-launched anti-ship missiles, these may not be used except in rare circumstances from fixed-wing aircraft. This is because of a few reasons. The first is that they will not have air superiority over the Persian Gulf from an American carrier battle group, or if the US utilized Air Force assets to project power into the region. The F-18s on an American carrier are more than a match for all but perhaps the Iranian F-14s to be able to handle. The only reason the F-14 is a much larger threat is due to their radars and the AIM-54 Phoenix missiles. With the beyond visual range capability it has, they can engage an F-18 well before the F-18 can return fire. These aircraft are also in short supply, and an airstrike would lead to a retaliatory strike on the hostile airfields, which would further deplete the Iranian Air Force of aircraft they cannot replace, with weapons embargoes and sanctions still in effect. The remaining aircraft would stand little chance of getting in close to launch an attack. Whatever the fighter wings did not successfully engage would be at the mercy of the Aegis-equipped destroyers and their SM-2 missiles. Any further threats would be then engaged by the rolling airframe missiles, Sea Sparrows, and close-in weapon system, or CIWS, on board the destroyers in the aircraft carrier itself. If the F-22 or the F-35 are used, the Iranian Air Force might not even detect their adversary before it's too late. If the Iranians utilize their helicopter assets, they may stand a better chance for a successful strike, but they would be a one-off attack and more than likely would not be used to actually fire the missiles, but rather used to spot the vessels to make targeting much easier from longer ranges. Unlike the Iranian aircraft, combat ineffective would like to be spotted easier, so be sure to click that subscribe button. If you like our content, then hit that like button and share it with your friends on social media. The least likely course of action would be any ground campaign. The Iranian military does have a large contingent of tanks, armored vehicles, and artillery, but they would not wish to bring the wrath of their neighbors, who would most certainly ask the UN, the US, and NATO to intervene and repel the ground invasion. The most dangerous course of action would be in the use of the Iranian Quds Force and their proxies around the world to launch attacks, assassinations, and bombings in the region or abroad to place political pressure on foreign governments to bring a peaceful end to the hostilities. Whatever does happen, this will most likely be quick for both sides. Iran cannot afford a long campaign. The sanctions have depleted their forces and slowed their economy significantly. It is our assessment that Iran is simply saber-rattling currently, and their current goal would be to carry out an attack to atone for their sovereignty in their territory being infringed. This may be in the form of capturing an adversary's flagged merchant ship, or an assassination of a foreign diplomat or ambassador or defense attaché. We thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you made it to the end of this video, then please comment below. This channel grows only through fans like you that share this with your friends on social media. We wish to thank you all that have supported this channel. We wish to thank Richie and Sulfide again for their material support to this channel that has made our quality increase dramatically.